football. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Zaire Emery goes for goal and finishes off the PSG victory.
Peut-être devenir possible grâce à Monsieur Lionel Messi. Quelle frappe!
Le festival Neymar pour Kylian Mbappé, la frappe, le poteau et le but!
Hello and welcome to PSG Review, also known as the show that will hopefully provide you with some peer support during these frustrating times when simply screaming into the pillow by yourself doesn't suffice. Also known as the show that could probably be substituted at this point by me posting a photo of my upturned middle finger in social media and after that screaming to the pillow, but we are doing what we can in giving the situation a bit better analysis than that, and what it may lack in catharsis it will hopefully gain with some insight. We have sunk pretty low, my friend, but let's talk about it. Let's share the burden, and to an outsider or someone who only looks at the league table, this can sound a tad overly dramatic, but we know, and I know you know, and I feel it too. My name is Mikko and I'm very happy to have you with me right now listening to PSG Review. Online you can talk to me at PSG Helsinki on Twitter and Instagram and email me psghelsinki@gmail.com. Many thanks to everyone who has shared this show wherever they may have done it, rated it on the various platforms, written a short review or even subscribed. All of that warms my heart quite a bit. Today in the show we will be talking about the Lorient match, of course, which left a lot to be desired, and we will also have an extensive look into what's happening in and around the club in general as far as the future planning goes. Seems more important than perhaps ever before. No real updates on the manager situation. The only thing that seems quite sure is that come August, then we start again, the manager's name will not be Christophe Galtier. I appreciate building the long project as much as anyone else, but we have gone past the point of return, and for now the club needs to figure out how to provide tacticians a work environment that doesn't entirely eat them alive, because if we only change the manager, chances are that we will be in the same situations 12 months from now talking about the same exact thing. The deadlock around the stadium question also continues. There's some talk about PSG being interested in buying Stade France, making an offer for that, but we have to see how that goes and what kind of poker is being played with this whole matter. I have a feeling that there might be more to this than meets the eye, although the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, seems adamant and the city council is likely to take an issue with selling the park to the Qataris. And this might be the issue. I mean, I don't know. Do they have an issue with selling it to PSG or actually selling it to the Qatar Sports Investments, which is part of the state apparatus there in Qatar? You know what's happened in London is that the London City Hall, which is a landmark building, it was sold to Kuwait Sovereign Wealth Fund earlier, maybe a decade ago or so, and now the mayor of London had to leave it because the rent was getting out of control. So understandably, selling landmark properties to essentially other countries comes with its complications, and while this would not necessarily be the same situation with Parc des Princes, as PSG would use it themselves, not to rent it out, and that without PSG it would be a husk of its old self. I mean, Parc des Princes and PSG, they go hand in hand at this point. But nevertheless, this whole sale, which is being resisted, brings about many issues, and some of them are practical and some are more sentimental. So no deep dive into those things any further. I have talked about them a lot in other episodes, so if you are interested in those, there's a lot to listen in the back catalog. But there is a lot to talk about when it comes to new players that we might be looking into, and we will get into that shortly. But first, Ligue 1 match day 33. It was played on Sunday early evening at Parc des Princes when FC Lorient came to town. Some concerns during the warm-ups as Kylian Mbappé seemed to be experiencing some discomfort, but he was nevertheless able to start at the park, which lacked the atmosphere of Hauteuil and the Ultras. At the end of the stadium, that area was empty. This time, the team had slightly different tactics by Galtier. The back four was formed by Hakimi, Marquinhos, Ramos and Bernat, and Donnarumma, of course, behind them. Midfield with Marco Verratti, Vitinha, Danilo and Carlos Soler, who was in a more attacking role, some sort of a 10. Although when Messi is on the pitch, it's not quite the number 10 role that is left for Soler, that is for sure. And with Messi, you had, of course, Kylian Mbappé up front, who was able to play, like said. The beginning of the match was the type of sloppy possession that we have come to know in recent times. We had a lot of the ball, but lost it good couple of times in dangerous spots, and quite unnecessarily so. I mean, inexplicably so when you're talking about players of this level. But at the same time, the chaos opened a few chances to PSG as well. So there were some chances, but it was Lorient who used their chances better and opened the scoring after quarter of an hour had been played. The all too familiar feeling of conceding an early goal. And I was left to wonder, what is our system? What actually is our system? We have a formation and sometimes it varies, like in this match, but what is actually our system? In any match against any type of opponent, we have had some glimpses of it, but in all fairness, it is mainly hoping for amazing players to do amazing things once or twice per match, and fingers crossed that will be enough. So the question is it Galtier who is unable to create a functional system, or the players who can't or don't want to respect it? That's the million-dollar question there, and I don't really have an answer for that. As such, it seems that we don't even have to choose between the two, as both of those things seem to be our issue. Achraf Hakimi had quite early on made a foolish sliding tackle, and only the fact that he managed to keep his touch down kept the card yellow, but he took his second yellow card around 20 minutes, which meant that not only did we have one fewer goals on the score sheet, we also had one fewer player on the pitch. It's moments like these that really make me miss Nodi Mukiele quite a bit, as he's far more useful player for PSG than what Hakimi is. I'm not saying that he's a better player. I'm just saying that he plays better. He keeps his head together and makes better choices. His mentality is far superior and he shows more humility. Hakimi has been actually quite a disappointment, and in this match he was really rocking the bottom. So things were not looking bright, that has to be said, but PSG had a fairly good chance there with Mbappe battling for the ball, and he was brought down with quite a force, but the match continued, and very bizarrely, the Lorient keeper put the ball in front of him, waiting to deliver it further. It wasn't a free kick, and it was not a goal kick, so Mbappe took the ball from in front of him and put it in the empty net. One of the more unusual goals, but they all count the same, and it was 1-1 while Lorient players were vigorously protesting. They were fuming really, but essentially everything had gone according to the rulebook, and PSG was even now with FC Lorient. It wasn't even for too long though, as PSG defensive play proved to be a parody of itself, and Lorient scored another one with a hand sideways movement, which seems like a move we haven't had an answer for in a good few seasons now. Few more almost chances for us before the halftime, but as the referee Jérôme Prissard blew the whistle, it was 1-2 for the visitors. Look, this match was pretty abysmal from PSG. I'm known to be quite optimistic and glass half full kind of person, but this is genuinely the least inspiring football I have seen by PSG in the last decade or so. Perhaps I missed something. There's been, of course, dips in form and things like that. This has happened, but we have to be honest with ourselves and say that this dip has now been lasting for many months, and we have become entirely reliant on moments of magic, which have saved us a few times, but now we have only excuses as our only defense. The funny thing about PSG that you noticed in this match, and this has happened before, especially this season, is that there's actually very little difference in how we play with 10 players to how we play with 11. Because the players who are there on the pitch, they are for the most part, of course, great football players. Some of them are absolutely world-class players even, but taking one of them off, it makes surprisingly small difference. So Galtier, he has got a lot to answer for, but at the same time, every manager in recent years has fizzled out in Paris, and it would be insanity to not look into the mirror. Imagine being in a series of relationships and all of them ended up in the same way, and you just insist that all of those previous partners have had some specific and mostly identical flaw without doing a little bit of introspection yourself. It would be an audacious attitude in life for sure, but not a very productive one. Yet it is something that seems to be so normal for PSG. Lorient had their last victory before this match on 12th of March, and that's 1.5 months ago. And yet coming to Park, we made them look like title contenders, as we did with Angers 1 week ago, and they are now definitely relegated to Ligue 1. Lens is strong, of course we know Lens is very strong, but without their red card at Park, would we have won that match? And how would the title race look if we would have lost that one? We are right now scraping the bottom of the barrel despite being on top of the league table thanks to our undefeated autumn. Without that, this season would be absolutely catastrophic. Last moments of the match, Lorient scored their third goal. PSG managed to avoid stupid defensive mistakes by simply not defending at all, and the final result was an embarrassing 1-3 at home. It's not great. Look, it is not great at all, but as much as things are going badly, there's no other way but to look into the future. It's very important to finish this season with some grace and dignity and 11th title. That is the task at hand right now, but as also we speak, things are happening in the background, and next we look at what are the prospects for our future. We're in this moment when we talk about potential future transfers quite a bit, and the contract extensions are part of the same broader conversation. So let's start from our captain Marquinhos. His form has been up and down. His leadership abilities have been called to question many times, and with him there's always that comparison against his mentor, compatriot and on-band predecessor Thiago Silva, who of course was also often criticized a lot in Paris, but essentially he will be remembered, certainly by me, as a PSG club legend. With Marquinhos though, there are questions. Earlier this year, I even recorded a whole episode of PSG Review titled "We Need to Talk About Marquinhos," where I was going through his difficult situation. But at the same time, we also know that when he is in form, fit and motivated, he can be one of the best in the world as centre-back. But is he a leader? I think all of the evidence that is available points to the direction that that is not his strongest points, and maybe that is the challenge. We know that he can be a huge danger for the opponents when it comes to corner kicks, and he has often scored when it really counted the most. Not in a while. It really has been up and down, and unfortunately it has mainly been down. Everyone wants Marquinhos at his best, but no one is too keen on the version we have seen during this early 2023. He, of course, had a difficult World Cup campaign, and whether he was to blame or not, and certainly he wasn't to be blamed alone. I don't even know if he was to be blamed the most, but he was in the thick of it when Brazil crashed out of the tournament, and after that he has struggled to get back into it quite a bit, while extension talks have been also going on in the background. It's always a complicated, quite difficult and even awkward combination, lack of form and extension talks. But now it seems that there will soon be an announcement of his extension until 2027. Those are the reports that we're hearing, although of course it was already said months ago that the deal is only short of publicizing it, but it's something that should now be happening at some point soon if these reports are to be believed. It's been said amongst other people by Fabrizio Romano, so not just the clickbait gossip sources either. Our defense for next season is finding its form, as it should, because this season has been very bad. Last season I thought that it could not get any worse, but as Murphy would have it, it's been absolutely awful. The situation around Sergio Ramos is that there could be an extension and that he could be reportedly willing to lower his salary, which I imagine would be the requirement for him to continue in Paris anyway. I can see why he would have a motivation to make a further short commitment with us, because at this point there probably isn't a long line of top clubs who could even theoretically compete for the Champions League that would provide him playing time and a position in the squad. Ramos, of course, doesn't have the legs to do much when the quick-paced Ligue 1 trademark counterattacks come at him or swoosh by him, but of course he has that mysterious Real Madrid quality of raising his standard immensely when it counts the most. There's been times when he ends up playing almost as a striker for the last minutes, willing the ball into the goal, whether successfully or not, but it's been something quite interesting to see also. So his season hasn't been without merits, but at the same time it's not very straightforward. He isn't a player he once was. If we want to rely on him as an unquestioned starter, that will be a problem, but as an impact player he could be someone who can make the difference when it really needs to be made. Another defender question mark, of course, is Milan Skriniar. The Inter Milan player has agreed to come to Paris. That has been reported a long time ago, since January, and subsequently he has suffered from injuries to such extent that he's out for the rest of the season, and he underwent an endoscopic surgery on his lumbar spine at clinic in France not too long time ago. That's lower back area for you and I, so how will his fitness and general health be when he comes to the City of Light? That is anyone's guess, but let's hope that it will be okay. In our backline, Presnel Kimpembe will still be out for a good long while. He won't have the normal preseason and he won't be starting the season on the pitch, but hopefully we will see him at some point next autumn back on the pitch. El Jadai Pichiapu, the young man, according to some rumors, have piqued the interest of at least Frankfurt, and I think that as a loan without an option to buy, that would be great, but the sale, I would feel that would be very hasty. We would be talking about a transfer fee of around 15 million, and I hope, I don't know, but should this even be a discussion, I hope there would be a healthy sell-on clause that would also guarantee us a percentage of any possible future sale. But all in all, I would prefer a loan without letting him go. Of course, I hope Frankfurt or some other club would agree to that, but of course for them that would entirely change the nature of this potential recruitment, so who knows. And then we have players for the backline that can and occasionally do play there, even quite often sometimes, whether it is their best position or not, but they are trustworthy options in my opinion. That's Danilo and Nordi Mukiele, and even Abdou Diallo seems to be coming back, although we don't know how long he's going to be staying. Is he going to be moving on? Will they find another club for him? That I don't know, but if I'm being honest, with the uncertainty of Skriniar's situation, the age of Ramos and the long absence and potentially difficult return of Kimpembe, we could use a solid centre-back starter. Otherwise, I'm not sure if we are in a position to expect huge steps forward. Some names mentioned by L'Equipe, so make of that what you will, are Manchester City's Emerick Laporte and Bayern Munich's Luka Hernandez. Injuries and uncertainty with these players too, and I have gathered that Hernandez is more of an OM guy, so who knows what to expect. Frankfurt's Evan Dika would be a free transfer this summer. That could interest me more, but we will see. On top of the ability to play defensive football, what is one of our challenges I find is that what is the defensive hierarchy of leadership in our defense? Because Marquinhos, he is the captain, and Presnel Kimpembe is a vice captain, or he shares that with Mbappe, but Presco is a PSG titty, and at least on paper he takes his responsibilities very, very seriously. I mean, of course on pitch as well, but the performances can go up and down. And Sergio Ramos, he's one of the great football captains of our time, full stop. Danilo has an important word in this also. And then Milan Skriniar, he has been a captain of Inter. And perhaps all this is a bit different to when we used to have Thiago Silva as the clear leader of the backline. And Marquinhos and Kimpembe understood their role in supporting him. So this is something that needs to be considered, so we don't have 5 different visions on the backline, but whoever is the conductor of that area will lead the rest to be an efficient collective. Kimpembe will enter the last season of his current PSG contract from the sidelines, as said, unless there is a renewal before the summer of 2024. He is free to do as he pleases then, so it's a complicated situation because he might want a better deal, but at the same time now with his fairly serious injury and uncertainty of how he is going to be able to come back, sometimes the post-injury performances aren't that great, or they might also just take a lot longer to get back into the swing of things. So it's not an easy thing to give him a new and improved long-term contract. PSG will either have to take the risk with our Titi Kimpembe or wait and see and leave it to the last minute with the risk of him going somewhere else 1 year and a bit from now, or then just come to an agreement that there's a short contract extension and then we see how that will go. And perhaps even if Kimpembe were to leave, we have to be honest and say that perhaps that is not the worst thing that can happen. For him, there's a huge pressure from the national team also as a solid lineup of centre-backs there. And of course, one of the main things about him in PSG colours to many of us is a sort of sentimental quality of him being the main player we have had from the academy who's had any resemblance of longevity. But as much as the defense is full of question marks, it's also curiously the area that has some concrete names attached to it. There's been more order in that chaos than in most other areas. But of course, it's still early days, so this is something that no matter how difficult it feels and no matter how frustrated we are with the way things are going right now, we also need to have some patience to see how the future will unfold. The big midfield questions are who will stay and who will go. Leandro Paredes is likely to come back, but seems that the club is attempting to use the same movement energy to ship him out at the same go. Whether that's easy or not, that I don't know, but we will see. There's also been reportedly some interest for Soler from Spain, but nothing to jump into any conclusions. Renato Sanchez has been injured for the large part of this season, and question with him is, will he just always struggle with the injuries? Is there a way forward and around them? Your guess is as good as mine. Now, Verratti, this year earlier or late last year, he signed a new contract. So he's here. And my dearest wish is for him to find his level, because this season has been very bad for him. We also need to ask, should our midfield be built around him so much, or should he rather be just one option in it? Because he will often miss big parts of the season, even if he is in form. I imagine Vitinha also will be around next season, and with Ruiz, I don't know. Will he be and should he be? It's a very up and down season for him too, but so was the first season by Danilo, and now he's one of our key players. So sometimes with these things also you need some level of patience, as with everything. And this also especially happens when you take players who are coming from outside of League One, because they don't only need to get used to a new culture, new surroundings, new language of communication, but also new league and new style of play and all those different things. So as we have been recruiting so heavily from everywhere but League One, this is the kind of situation where we easily find ourselves in. Warren Zaire-Emery is there, and when we think about our midfield, I think it's important to consider him. Because if he is now sidelined to periphery, the future with him will also become far more complicated than maybe it should be. Xavi Simons is a question. If PSG can convince him to return, there's a clause that will mean it won't be too pricey, but he ultimately is the one to make that choice. And with the season he's having currently in the Netherlands and for PSV, he will really have to look at what choice on balance is the best for him. But the player that I'm most excited about, and I need to stress that nothing is guaranteed and this is a long, long road ahead, but there's been some suggestions that Khephren Thuram is a genuine lead for us. His current club Nice is 9th in the league on table, so despite them having a reasonable European campaign this season in the Conference League, next season promises no such thing, so I cross my fingers for this to happen, for his arrival, and it certainly would be in line with some of the suggestions that it is time to get more French players for PSG. Like I said, the deal is far from done, but who knows, it could be an amazing opportunity for both parties, especially if we as a club can get our act together. He could play a huge role in getting that act together, but of course, we need the whole structure to fix up a little bit. There's been other names mentioned, and there will be many more to come in the next couple of months. There's no doubt about that, but we keep our eye on this. And really the thing is that only when the players walk into the PSG offices at La Factory will we know that the deal is closing in, even if that's not always guaranteed, as we learned with Hakim Ziyech a few months ago in January. But let's hope that it was more of an exception that proves the rule. All in all, the departures and the success of selling will be a huge factor in all this, and now it would appear that at least Mauro Icardi and perhaps Gini Wijnaldum could be sold. Maybe Keylor Navas also, and not sure about the young players, and then we still have to figure out Paredes and Draxler. What's their fate in our colors? And the big question mark is the Messi situation, but I have talked about that quite extensively in the previous episode, so in the absence of any concrete updates on that, we will wait for some indication of how that might unfold. But my main point is, and has been for a good long while, that PSG must build a team that is essentially a Ligue 1 team. we have been trying to build a Champions League team, but it leaves us struggling domestically, and the results in continental football have been unimpressive, to say the least, because it's very difficult to be ready for Europe if you're not ready for the Ligue 1 matches, which are by far the most matches of any given season. We don't need any more Carlos Soleres, who I'm sure is a decent player, but in Ligue 1 he doesn't have the physicality that it takes. It's just one name. I mean, maybe it's a little bit unfair to even mention example names, but the same could have already been said about Sarabia and many, many others, and we need to have strong footballing project that leads the way. Money is needed and marketing is part of that. This is professional football and all these things are massively important parts of it, but do you rather sell the most shirts or win the Champions League? And if you do win the Champions League, do you think that you won't sell shirts on the back of that? Can't just throw the money at problems. We need to have a plan, a strategy, a vision, an identity and system, and the players who are needed for that system should be targeted rather than just anyone with a little bit of name. There is a way to figure this out. I'm sure of that. This cannot be impossible, but we need different approach, and hopefully this summer that approach is taken and followed through without much meddling, and hopefully when the next season comes we have a project once more, because if we don't, Kylian Mbappe is able to leave for free in the summer of 2024, and that will put us back to the square one in many ways, so the playtime is over. This summer will decide a lot for the future of this club. Thank you so much for listening. I know we aren't living the most uplifting of times, but in life you have to take rough with the smooth, so here's to us waiting for that smooth time to arrive. Next Sunday we play Troy on the road, and after that Ajaccio at home and Auxerre on the road. Whatever happened with anyone else, however anyone else plays in Ligue 1, getting 9 points from those 3 matches would take us quite close to the title. Not there yet, but it would be the right direction, and it would leave us very, very close to being able to lift the trophy at the end of the year. And after that there's Strasbourg and Clermont, so 5 matches left to play. The team just needs to start performing with some dignity, and it will be okay then. Whatever they need, whatever it requires, they just need to find that and go with it. More next week. Thanks for having spent this moment with me, and until we speak again, peace.